In the United States, almost half of adults will experience a mental illness during their lifetime. Is medication the only option? We don't think so, and neither does our guest. That's what we're talking about today on The Healthy View. Hello, and welcome to The Healthy View. I'm Lisa Lutan, and I'm here with my beautiful and brilliant co-hosts, Andrea Beeman and Michelle Leota. We are all expert health coaches who've collectively helped thousands of people around the world get happier and healthier while staying sane and having fun. Today we're talking about brain health, otherwise known as mental illness, and taking a different approach towards treating mental illness. The number of people suffering with mental health issues, including depression and anxiety, is rising daily. The good news is that we're finally talking about mental health out loud, as opposed to the whispers and the stigma of the past. But the bad news is that unlike other parts of our body, where we take a look and see what's going on the inside, with mental health, we're just prescribed a pill based on a description of symptoms. Some of these medications are not curing people, and in some cases, they're actually harming people. But thank goodness some mental health professionals like our guest today are looking at mental health with a whole new lens. Our guest today is Dr. Christina Bjorndal, and Andrea is going to tell us all about her.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to have with us today Dr. Christina Bjorndal. She is an authority in the treatment of mental illness such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, and eating disorders using a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual approach. Having overcome many mental health challenges, Dr. Chris is a gifted speaker and writer and has shared her wellness philosophy with the Jenny McCarthy Show, the International Bipolar Foundation, and many health summits and docuseries. She is recognized as a top ND to follow, and her book, Beyond the Label, is a comprehensive guide to naturopathic mental health. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chris. We're very excited to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And before we dig into this hot topic, we always like to ask our guests some personal questions to help us connect our audience with you a little more deeply. So we like to start with food because we all like to eat. So as a health and wellness advocate, we know that food is essential to the health of the mind. So what did you have for breakfast today?
You know what? I still have it sitting right here. I actually just had a banana. That's all I
had. Oh, it's breakfast for you. You're on the West Coast?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the number one thing that you do every day that has the greatest impact on your life?
The number one thing that I do that has the greatest impact on my life? That's such a hard question because there's so many things. But I would say the number one thing is laughter and spending time with my son.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's two things, but anyway, yeah.
Well, you're probably spending time with your son makes you laugh, right?
Yes,
hopefully.
It totally does.
Yeah. Laughter is good medicine. And then the final question is, what is your guilty pleasure, if you have one?
Oh, yes, definitely. Mine is going to be chocolate. That's my guilty pleasure.
You're not alone. There's
listen, when people come to see me, I say, look, if you're looking for somebody who's going to tell you not to ever have chocolate, I'm not the one for you. So
definitely not looking for that.
Yeah. I think 9 out of 10 of our guests cite chocolate.
Yeah, definitely.
Isn't that funny?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get started because this is a really great topic and especially important at this time in our lives where you can see the mental structure breaking down in so many people and in society as a whole. So what is your own story of regaining? You also had a breakdown yourself. What is your story of regaining your own mental health?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I haven't always been a naturopathic doctor, and I came to this profession through my own struggles. So started in high school with an eating disorder, and I then morphed into university, continuing that behavior. But I found myself in my third year in a place that I hadn't been before, which was depressed and paralyzed with anxiety. And so I was prescribed an antidepressant, which I took. And then within about 3 months after that, I found myself in another place that I'd never been before, which was having little to no sleep, having racing thoughts, very euphoric, and basically then spun out of control and into a delusional, psychotic, manic episode where I was, it took 6 people to wrestle me into a straitjacket, and off I went to the hospital. So I was injected with haloperidol, a very powerful antipsychotic, left there to come back to reality. When I came back, I was told that I have bipolar disorder type 1. And so what I did with that is pretty much just shoved it far away in a corner that I dared not to look, and then just continued marching through the world with this overachieving tendency that I had developed. And upon graduation, I ended up reporting to a CEO quite quickly into my corporate career. But I was always wearing this mask that, you know what, I'm doing fine on the outside, thank you very much, but I'm actually not doing that well on the inside. So I ended up having a suicide attempt that left me in a coma with kidney failure. I was on dialysis, told I would need a kidney transplant. And I look at that attempt really as my spiritual turning point, because it was at that point that when I came out of that coma and I was still here on the planet, despite all of my best efforts, I realized something had to give. And I ended up reading a book by Marianne Williamson called A Return to Love. And there's this quote in this book on surrender, which goes along the lines of, surrender is not about breaking out of anything. It's a gentle melting into who we really are. So we let down our armor. We take off the mask. And that's all God needs, is just one sincere, surrendered moment where love matters more than anything and nothing else really matters at all. And so what landed on me with that quote was that love piece. Like, I was so not in love with myself. I hate it. Like, and I don't like using that word because it's a strong word, but I really did not like that diagnosis. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I have to remember too, this is in the 80s. And in the 80s, there was no conversation going on about mental health at all. So I'm really grateful to have, witnessed the last 40 years, to see the changes that have happened in the conversations, but I still feel we're missing a big piece of this, is that we're not actually taking action. So that's basically the journey in a nutshell. And eventually I went to see a nutritionally oriented psychiatrist who, at that time, I was taking 5 psychotropic medications. And I'm not anti-medication, but I subscribe to his philosophy, which is minimum dose, maximum benefit for the shortest duration of time. And so then he got me on the road more on this physical level with looking at diet and nutrition and supplementation. But then eventually I had to bump up against my thoughts, my core beliefs, my emotions, my shadow beliefs, my unconscious commitments. So that's why I have training in 5 types of counseling that I incorporate when I'm working with people. Because I think if we're really, truly going to get to the root cause, we have to look at all these different aspects. So I eventually made a career change, went back to high school when I was 33 to go on to university, to go on to naturopathic school. So here I am.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. That is amazing. I love that you talk about a spiritual crisis that you had. Because personally, I believe that when someone's having mental breakdowns, it's a spiritual emergency. It's a spiritual crisis. There's something going on that's almost like a wake up of consciousness. And I feel like it's misdiagnosed by modern medicine. So I love I haven't read your book yet, but it's on my list. Your book is Beyond the Label, because there's all these labels, I think, that we put onto people just so we can give them more medication. Here you go, you get this, you get that medication, that medication. So I'm really looking forward to diving into your book. I'm currently reading one by Stanislav Grof, Stormy Search for the Self. It's fantastic.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think you would like it.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's you know, we are, a lot of times I say to people, I think we're almost looking in the wrong area, that this is a call to for love, a call to the heart, a call for connection, a spiritual call back to the self, to the soul. But yet we're all focused on the brain. So.
Yeah, that is great. And the fact that you went to Marianne Williamson's book, right? Out of all the books to get, that was the first one that you picked up?
Well, I didn't pick it up. I was lying in a hospital room, so my friend brought it to me.
Wow, bless that friend.
Yeah, you know what? And I think this is an important piece too, is this connection and power of friendship and community and support. Just to be on here with the three of you, I think, you know, there's a friendship there and a connection there between you three that I can see. And I think this is also so under acknowledged, I think, in terms of the treatments that is really important for people for recovery, because being depressed and anxiety and eating disorders, there's a lot of isolation that is involved with these, and a lot of shame, and sometimes you really need this helping hand. And this particular friend has been instrumental in many aspects of my recovery. When I was struggling in university, she's the one that made the call to the university health services and made an appointment for me. She's the one that gave me that Return to Love book. So she's really been a soul sister in this recovery for me. So a huge shout out to her.
Yeah, soul sister and an angel, right? Yeah. Angel for you. So since you've been through this and you're working with people, I mean, it's almost like you've had a shaman journey, you know, like right? Because there's some main event that happens that explodes you open, and you have changed your consciousness, and now you're sharing it with the world, which is so awesome. So when you're working with your patients, what are the main aspects that you like to address with them? What do you feel are the most important?
Mm-hmm. So the top I break it down into these four main areas that then gets dissected a bit more. But the four areas that I think we should be discussing with everybody, regardless of whether you're coming in for depression or heart disease or endometriosis, it's the physical level, but then we have to also look at the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual aspects. Recognize that all four of those are what make you and I and all of us that are listening up as an individual. And I think the problem with Western medicine is it's just focused on that physical level. Unless you're maybe seeing a psychologist, then you might dive into the other areas.
So when you're talking about, like, well, let's start with the physical level, right? Because everybody's in a body, and mostly that's where they go to, right? Because that's what they understand. I'm in a body, and right, they neglect the spirit because it's like ether. So when you're looking at the physical body, what do you want to shift people away from, and what do you want to shift them toward?
Mm-hmm. So with mental health, what I want to shift people away from is, or what I want, not necessarily shift them away from, but what I want them to open their mind to is the understanding that there's 3 macrosystems within you on that physical level. So you have your neurotransmitters, and that's generally where everybody's focused when we speak about mental health. So, but we also have the neuroendocrine or hormonal system and the organs of detoxification and our immune system. So understand that all 3 macrosystems need to be assessed when you're dealing with mental health, especially in people who are prescribed an antidepressant and they're not getting better. Maybe that's the wrong tool for the job. So asking people, you know, when did this start? How old were you? Like a real pet peeve of mine is women in their late 40s, early 50s, when there's shifts happening from a perimenopause, menopausal perspective, and they're prescribed antidepressants. I think that's the wrong macrosystem to be looking at from a root cause perspective. So always want to be asking yourself, what is at the root of this situation from a physical level? And you know what, in my case, it really was all 3 macrosystems that had to be addressed. And, you know, just addressing the neurotransmitters wasn't enough for me. So keep that in mind as well.
I love that. And I love that you connect to perimenopause and menopause, because the classical traditional treatment for women who were going through menopause and men didn't know what to do with them was to give them a hysterectomy because they were hysterical.
Yeah.
Right. And you just talked about the endocrine system and the right? It's all connected. So, you know, taking out the womb, taking out the uterus, taking out the reproductive system of the woman is not getting to the root cause. It's just cutting off your arm if you got a splinter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I know it's a real, women have, I mean, that's probably a whole nother show. It's the way women have been treated in medicine. But yes, it's not, it's I think a real travesty for sure.
Can I ask a question here? You know, in my mind, there's confusion over something like depression and anxiety, which there seems to be a little hereditary component, but there is also, you know, life circumstance. And then we think of things like bipolar and schizophrenia, which in my mind have always been more of a hereditary type of thing. Can you just kind of clarify that for us? You know, how much is hereditary, how much is environment and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the areas I do talk about is the role the environment plays. And for myself, whenever I asked the question, why is this happening to me? The answer I always got was, well, it's genetic. But the thing is, so I'm adopted. So I couldn't look to the left or my right to verify the truth of that statement. So I never accepted it as the truth. So I'm not going to say that there are not some conditions that are genetic, because the whole reason my parents adopted me was because of a genetic condition called Huntington's chorea, which is a neurodegenerative condition that is very difficult. So there are things, but newer research has come out in the last 40 years about epigenetics. So the difference between genetics and epigenetics is genes load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So another example from my family is this idea of with cancer. A lot of people, again, think that cancer is a genetic condition. So my grandmother was one of 6. All of her siblings, including herself, died of cancer, but yet not one of their children, so my mother and her cousins, have had cancer. So that's the epigenetic piece of the puzzle. So it's not so much about whether you have the gene or not, it's what turns that gene on or off within you. So for myself, especially with depression and anxiety, I hear that a lot. Oh, well, I'm this way because this is in my family. It runs in my family. And I think that leaves people feeling a little bit like they're a victim, like there's nothing that they can do about their mental health. And I think because I didn't have the benefit of the you know, my parents to look at from a biological perspective, I haven't adopted that as my truth. So perhaps I've biohacked bipolar disorder. I don't know. I think it's definitely a condition that needs to be managed. I always get this question as well: are you cured? You know, is this ever going to happen to you again? And I live in the present moment. I don't have a crystal ball, but I like to set that intention that by following all the 10 steps that I talk about in the book, that yes, you can be healed, cured, manage this condition, and live a wonderful life.
I love that. Go, Michelle.
Hopefully, did I answer your question though, Lisa?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, I was just thinking about a conversation that I had with my girlfriend the other day. She was like, you know, I have anxiety and depression. And I said, hold up. First of all, welcome to the club. I think it's called being a woman in modern society. And, you know, not to make light of it, but could you speak a little bit to the environmental or societal factors that are bringing out anxiety, bringing out depression, and well, I'm going to say everyone, but maybe particularly women. I'm always thinking about like, what is going on? How come this has just become the norm?
Yeah, and I think, and maybe it's become the norm because we are talking about it more, perhaps. But I think there's a really important thing that we want to differentiate between is the outside affecting the inside or the inside affecting the outside. So I don't want to say that they're not both, people in both situations can exhibit depression and anxiety or experience depression and anxiety. And I don't want to make one seem less important than the other, because regardless, whether it's the outside affecting the inside or the inside affecting the outside, regardless, you're experiencing an uncomfortable state, whatever's causing that, right? But I do think we want to differentiate between the two. And I think that our society is really stressed nowadays. I think that this technology piece of the puzzle that's come in since 2005 or whenever the iPhone came out in the mid 2000s, we have sacrificed, like Michael Pollan says, we've sacrificed 2 hours a day for technology time, and what have we given up in that? We've given up exercise and cooking and self-care. So I think when people are, when your friend is saying to you, I'm anxious and depressed, we really want to try to tease out, again, what's happening is at the outside, what's going on is in your life, stress factors, relationship, work, family, friends, children, versus what's happening on the inside, which is that physiological piece that I was talking about. And you can have both, right? Your child could be getting bullied at school, which brings up an unhealed wound within you, reminding you of when you were a child, which then affects your ability to sleep, which then affects your hormones, which then affects how you're going to feel the next day and how you're going to cope. So it's really multifactorial. But I do think that these conditions are on the rise. And again, bringing it back to the technology piece, we're disconnected from this sense of community as well. So we cannot dismiss that as a key factor. In fact, in England, they just appointed a minister of loneliness. Mm. So this just highlights the really important piece of connection that I think is also missing in I'd say the last decade. It's gotten worse for sure.
Yeah, like we think we're more connected because but we're not actually more connected. And I love that you talk about unhealed wounds. Mm. I think that's really important. An example, my uncle was paranoid schizophrenic, and after he passed, and they just kept putting on medication and medication, more medication. And after he passed, I hired a psychic because I love the ether and I love the other outer bodies and spirit. And so the psychic said, she said, oh, something happened to him when he was 13 that split his mind and allowed this to break, and it was never healed. And it was so interesting because she had never met my uncle. She never knew him. But when he was 13 years old, his mother committed suicide and he found her hanging.
Oh.
Yes. So it was a wound that had never healed, that had interrupted his heart and his mind. So I know that you recommend people learn to trust their intuition, to trust their heart. Can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Mm-hmm. And first, I just want to acknowledge you for sharing that, because that's touching me. Like it's so true. I think it's bringing up emotion in me because I truly believe that schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, which I think is very difficult. Like psychosis is a difficult state to work with people, but you want to understand that it's often because of a trauma. In every patient I've worked with, including myself as a patient, and including every patient that I've worked with with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, there's been a trauma like that, a big T trauma. And the ultimate thing, I've been doing a lot of training with Dr. Gabor Mate, and who's written a book that I think is really important called When the Body Says No. He talks about how the most important thing is attachment, is maintaining this connection with the people that you're attached to. From a infant's perspective, it's their parents. So when that is broken, and in the case of your uncle's, so your great, I'm not sure, I can't do the line here, great, whoever that would be in your life, her committing suicide, that's a major attachment break, right? Obviously. So so now with that introduction, I've lost the question. I'm sorry.
I just want to throw in, wait.
Lisa has a question.
I just want to throw in something that I forgot about, that I heard there's some major research going on in one of the top Boston hospitals, I think it might be the Brigham, on the association of trauma with bipolar. And so I think it is something that's gaining some traction, and it's super interesting.
Yeah, super, super interesting. And another thing I was going to say as well about psychosis is that you are vibrating at a different level. You're just vibrating at a different level. So what I explain to people, I really don't like this word normal. And another article that Dr. Mate has written and it's an article that I would like to write, or my own version of this article, which is the myth of normal, right? The myth of normal. So what I explain to patients is you know, I draw a graph and I put normal kind of in the middle, and at the bottom of the graph is suicide, and at the top of the graph is mania, psychosis. And I explain to people, look, that's the full range of human experience, okay, from the pit of depression to, you know, quote unquote, losing your mind in psychosis. And I've been there, but I can tell you, it's not fun, right? It may not be, it's not fun, but I don't think it's fair to tell people that you're not normal. So it is all normal, but it is just not comfortable, and it is not accepted as society. But you are, like I say to my patients, there is nothing wrong there's nothing wrong with you, right?
You're not broken.
You're not broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, that's how we deal with you know, with these things that happen. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's, you're getting, like, if you're telling someone you're not broken and you're understanding them and supporting them, you're coming from a heart place rather than a head place.
Now I remember your question, which is, how do I help people follow their intuition?
Yes.
Yes. So what I do is there's a bit of a process. So first of all, I start with teaching people how to manage their mind so they're not at the mercy of their mind. And that includes a process that I call the 7 R's of working with problematic thoughts and breaking the thought emotion cycle. In essence, it's just a form of meditation. It's just a way to bring you into the present moment, bring you some awareness about what are you thinking and is this serving you? But a piece of this puzzle is an exercise I take people through called the heart exercise. So is anybody game to do it with me? Is anyone willing to be a volunteer?
Yes, let's
We can all do it.
Well, I need one to respond out loud.
I'll do it.
Yeah, we can all, okay. All right. So
okay.
And for people who are listening or watching, just, you know, do this along with us. So you'll just invite you, Lisa, just to put your hands over your heart, and just invite you to close your eyes and just take a deep breath in. Just settling into this moment. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. I just want you to repeat after me and then the answer that comes up. The first one is more of a statement, which is, heart, show me where you are.
Heart, show me where you are.
And then just pay attention to whether you notice a color, a word, a feeling, a sensation, and just share with us.
Just feeling a warmth in my chest.
Nice. Heart, will you ever lie to me? Yes or no?
Heart, will you ever lie to me? No.
Heart, will you always tell me the truth? Yes or no?
Heart, will you always tell me the truth? Absolutely yes.
And heart, have I always followed you? Yes or no?
Heart, have I always followed you? No.
Heart, how do you feel when you hear, I haven't always followed you?
Heart, how do you feel when you hear, I haven't always followed you? Broken heart.
Heart, can you forgive me for not always following you? Yes or no?
Heart, can you forgive me? Yes.
And heart, is it possible that you are God or grace or my intuition dwelling within?
Heart, is it possible that you are God or grace or my intuition dwelling within? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to be a test subject.
You're welcome.
So here's the quote that I want to leave people with to help highlight the importance of this exercise, by Joseph Campbell. The heart must usher the mind into the zone of revelation. So we want to lead our lives from a heart-centered place, not from where most people are living from the neck up, and we're discounting the body. And as a result of that, the ego gets involved, and then we can get tripped up, often stuck in fear and indecision and the designs of the ego that are there to protect us. But we want to learn to trust the heart more. And the way I work with this with patients is just gently asking these questions to the heart, and keep it really simple at first till you build this muscle within you, which is, you know, brown rice or quinoa tonight, right? Chicken or beef, right? Brown pants or blue pants. Like, nothing's going to go wrong. No, disaster's going to happen if you wear the brown pants today. So the thing is that as you learn to build this, you'll trust this voice. When you get that hit, call Lisa. Or you get that hit, call your mother. Or you get the hit, don't take that drink, turn left, turn right. You'll learn to follow it more, but start with the small things. And then the other quote that I'll leave you with by Joseph Campbell as well, that I really love, that I think will wrap this up nice with mental health, is the psychotic drowns in the same water the mystic swims.
Ooh, that's cool.
Well, I'm getting the hit to tell you that I love you, and I love and I love you for sharing your experience and for delving more deeply into this and then bringing this out to the world. Really nice work, Dr. Chris. Nice work.
Thank you. So maybe you'll shelve the other book and put mine up front.
I'm going to run out to the Barnes and Noble today and pick it up.
Well, I think you can only do it online.
All right, well, that's where I'm going then.
Okay. But
So,
anyways, thank you.
Where can our listeners go to learn more about you?
Yeah, my website, drchristinabjorndal.com. And then I'm on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So just find my name. I'm pretty unique, so it's not hard to find me. You just got to spell it right.
Yeah, we'll put the correct spelling in the show notes so people can reach out to you and find you and get all your information and your knowledge and love as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies. So I'm sure that we all got something out of this today. This was really nice. I like her. I like her energy. What do you girls? What's one takeaway that you got from today's guest?
Well, first of all, I think we all teared up at some point during this episode. Did we not?
Yeah.
Really sweet. I want to go back and replay that exercise and write those questions down. And it made me think, I don't know what you girls think about this, but do you have to be a doctor? Do you have to be a psychologist in order to help someone with their mental health or to help someone like through these issues? Can you do this at like a friend level?
Well, I feel like we all do it at a coach level. A big part of health and life coaching is dealing with the stress, the anxiety, the issues, the relationships. It's not just about food and exercise, right? So I feel like it's one of the reasons I was so excited to have her on the show. Like so many of my clients are dealing with either a mental issue or have a family member with a mental health issue. And it's just such a huge issue today that I'm fascinated by hearing anything that takes a more natural and holistic view of ways to cope and manage and look at it.
Yeah, because I liked how she was talking about the lack of community. I think that's so key. I think just by being in community with someone, yeah, maybe as their coach or their practitioner, but also as their friend or their family member, and holding space for each other. The friend that I mentioned earlier, she and I, we help each other out so much just because we're willing to talk about this stuff with each other. And that alone goes so far. So yeah, everyone should reach out to Dr. Chris, but also like we just need each other.
Yeah. Well, look who helped Dr. Chris. It was one of her friends, right? One of her friends came to her at the hospital and gave her the book from Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love, right? So this was part of her journey. So of course we have to have that community. We have to have that. Otherwise we fall apart. No man is an island, right? Unto himself. We all need each other.
Nor is any woman an island.
That's right. No woman.
No woman.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this very special episode of The Healthy View. We love having you here. If you'd like to get notified each time we release a new episode, you can just head on over to healthyviewshow.com and we'll drop you a note when each one releases. And we would also appreciate your written review, star review, whatever review on iTunes, where you can find all of our past episodes. Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next time.